Hello and welcome to Art School Live. My name is Mandy Tice. I'm the director of the 𝗂𝗶𝘀𝗶𝗴 Arts, and I am subbing for Eric while he is away on a vacation with his family. Lucky Eric. Today, I have a truly wonderful guest that I can't wait to introduce you all to. Her name is Mary Garrish. And Mary, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to work with you today. Tell us just briefly, what is it that we're going to learn with you today?
We're going to talk about designing trees and simplifying them.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so let's get this show started.
It's Art School Live with Eric Rhodes.
You may have noticed I am not Eric Rhodes. My name is Mandy Tice, and I am filling in for Eric while he's away on a family vacation this week. Today, our guest is Mary, and she is going to teach us how to design trees from start to finish. So, Mary, take it away.
All right. So for all you landscape painters out there, you know, one of the most important parts of a landscape painting are the trees. And so we're going to talk about how to make better designs out of the trees. You know, when you're out there painting in plein air or in the studio from a photograph, you know, you don't have to take the tree as it is. You are the artist, and it is your job to be creative and to design that tree the way you think it is best rendered. Of course, you still want to make the tree look like whatever species of tree it is that you're painting, if that's important, or maybe it's just more important about the form. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you, I'm going to move this in a little bit.
Wonderful.
And so one of the first things I do is I go to my thumbnail sketches, and I will start with a very simple design with a pencil usually. This is actually a Sharpie, but I just did that, you know, for better viewing.
Yeah,
And
we appreciate that as your viewers, that we can see it very clearly. So thank you for the Sharpie today.
Yes, wonderful, wonderful. So what I've tried to do here is, you know, make interesting shapes. And so in this first design, it's more about the sky and the trees are smaller. And then the second one, the trees have grown. And so the trees are more dominant and the sky is less dominant. And then in my third choice here, the trees are even larger. And so each time it gets more important what design the trees are, because they become more and more a larger part of your landscape.
Sure.
So that is one way that I study, is just with a pencil. And, you know, you can do this, you know, wherever, if you've got 5 minutes and you're waiting to pick somebody up, you know, if you've got your sketch pad, you can do this. And, you know, you're sitting on a plane, you can do this. And now at the top here, this is like a Notan. And there's this wonderful little pencil that I loved. It's a Pentel pen. And you can get it on Amazon. And if you can see this here, it's Pentel Arts Portable Pocket Brush Pen.
Perfect. That looks amazing. Really rich darks in there.
Oh, it is spectacular. And it has this great little tip on it. So you can really make like fine little lines or big fat lines.
Ooh.
And very quickly. And I just love playing around with it. It makes me feel very creative.
I love this. So when you were doing these little studies, are you doing them from your imagination, or do you keep pictures with you to work from, or are you observing out your airplane window?
All of the above, whatever is there. You know, I take a lot of pictures of interesting masses of trees, but also individual trees that I go, wow, that's pretty funky. And so then I look back and I said, well, how can I edit that? You know, because a lot of times there's kind of a lot of noise.
Sure.
And so you got to take the noise out. So this is one of the first from the photo that I'm going to be painting from today. This was one of the first little Notans I did. And this was the second one. So like looking at these two, this one is, to me, much more interesting in the shapes. This one, it looks like 3 little sentinels standing there. And these two especially could be twins. And so, you know, we don't really want to have repetitive shapes. So, I could come in and connect these in a different way. And, I could swing this out more. There are just a million different ways to decide how you're going to change the shapes here very quickly. And, you can do 10 of these in, 15, 20 minutes. I mean, it's
Sure.
just a really good way to practice designing trees. Now, the other thing I use sometimes is, I've got sky holes in here, and there's just a acrylic white paint marker. And then sometimes I'll come in and I'll design sky holes. And, that's yeah.
I was just thinking, I love all this language that you're using to describe this, like this idea of trees as little sentinels, right? And
Right.
do you want something so static, or do you want something more active? And the way that you talk about the tree holes as if they're like little characters in your painting, I really enjoy kind of the language you're using to help us understand this joy of painting trees.
Well, thank you. And since you just used the word active, that's a good time to introduce. So if you look at these two different designs here, you see how there's the most detail right in here. And there's still interesting shapes out here, but the most detail is right in here. And I did that purposefully because that's where my center of interest is going to be. So these dark shapes, what we're going to deal with here today is a sunset. And so these trees are going to be backlit. And so in the photograph, they're very, very dark, and so when you paint from photographs, you really have to know what is lacking in the photograph. And one of the things is, since you've got the sky behind it, and that's your light source, these are going to appear so dark that you won't see the color in them. So you as an artist have to know what color is in there. And so this has a more active side, which is over in here, both of these trees. This would be the active side. This would be the active side here. And this is the less active side. So this is actually where the sun is going to be setting, right in there. So that is why I purposefully designed more activity here, which will take the eye there.
So is it true that on the active side, that's almost always going to be your center of interest, or are there examples of where they would be different places on your painting?
Yes, you could do it differently. Like I could say this is the dominant side over here. I might want to create like a little tension and, have something kind of interesting over here, like a palm tree or something to, lead the eye from here back around over to here.
I
So
see.
yeah, but you'd want this part to be more dominant than, like, I wouldn't want my most interesting shapes to be over here on the very edge.
That makes sense. I love this idea of an active side and a less active side. Just the way that you think about your language and how you're describing this is really unique to me. I really enjoy getting into your brain and seeing through your eyes a little bit about how you're designing your entire composition here.
Well, I'll tell you what, it is really so much fun. So I'm not, in a minute, I'll put up the photograph and I'll show you how we're going to paint on top of, I just printed out a color print of a photograph that I had, and we're going to paint directly on top of that. And it's, again, another way to study. And I think it's so important that as artists, we study more and paint less, because we learn that way. And if you're just studying instead of making a painting, then you are more likely to experiment. And in experimenting, that's really where we tend to grow. Okay.
Blowing my mind right now. Study more, paint less. I
Yes.
really like that concept that, we're never done learning, that, we're all here today learning with you, right? We're studying along with you today. And so I'm really excited to see this other way of studying. So we have the no tan so far, and now we get to see how you're exploring these other ideas through these photographs.
Okay, so what I'm concentrating on. Now, this is mostly a sky. It's a sunset. But what I'm going to mostly try to concentrate are interesting tree shapes. And it's probably a little bit hard to see here, but I don't do this if I was just going to paint it myself, but just for teaching purposes, I did try to outline a little bit with a Sharpie, the shape of the tree that I'm going to try to follow. And right in here is going to be our center of interest. And so most of the detail will be in there. And, this is going to be a quick and dirty study. I'm not making a painting. I am gathering information and color notes. And most importantly, experimenting and having fun.
Fun is very important. This is my favorite element of painting.
Well, I think if you're not having fun, it's kind of hard to produce art.
That is very true. And, apparently people think that you have a lot of fun when you paint, because there's lots of people in the chat right now very excited to see you on the screen. There's lots of exclamation points.
Awesome. So you can see, if we have enough time, I'm going to do 2 little different versions of it. So, please, when you do these are incredible ways to just experiment. I mean, I'm going to kind of paint more or less the local tones of what's here today. But, you could go crazy wild and just do a painting of all pinks and purples, if you were feeling in a pink mood that day. And, you can experiment. So what we're really concentrating on today is line and shape of these trees. But, I could come back tomorrow and I could really play around with color. How can I make a tonal painting, but still have it interesting? Just all grays with maybe a little bit of, bright yellow in there, And so, and this is less than a penny, so you don't have to worry about wasting money. And I actually keep these, I journal these. Oh. And so it's really a way to, gather a lot of information. And so, I'm never at a lack for, oh gosh, what am I going to paint? What ideas do I have? I just go back through my journal, and I journal my note tans also. If I find something that's very interesting and unique, then I'll do that. And it's always food for thought. So I will quit yapping, and I will.
We like your yapping, but we're also very excited to see your painting.
Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come after these tree shapes. And, a lot of how you shape these is how the sky interfaces also with the tree. But first, I'm going to go to the tree shape and try to make some interesting shapes. And we'll see how I do.
Great. And for those of you who are watching, Mary is going to be one of the people at PACE this year at the Plein Air Convention and Expo. So make sure that you join up, get your spot in the Plein Air Convention this year so that you can work with Mary again.
So if you like this, I will be continuing on this theme at PACE of, how to study trees. And hopefully it will be interesting. Okay, so here I am. What's interesting about the paper is I don't like painting on a slick surface. I find it a little bit hard to control the paint, but the paint really sticks pretty well to the paper. So it's quite interesting. So
there's a question in the chat about what paper you're using. Like, what did you have it printed on?
It's just, some kind of printer paper. It's not very expensive. It's just, I'm not even sure what the brand is. Just
standard printer paper.
Yeah,
not the stuff.
Yeah, nothing special. Okay, so I'm following my little outline that I have here. And what's going to be crucial in this area to really making this an interesting painting are the sky holes. which we will come back in and design later. So I'm just putting in what is a fairly dark tone here. And
Can
I
you
will
clarify for us, are you using oils or acrylics today?
I'm using oils,
Okay.
and I have a limited palette, which I think is listed somewhere.
We just posted it in the chat. Thank you, Amandine. So
Wonderful.
it's for everybody.
So, what I'm really concentrating on right now is line and shape. So, you don't really need a lot of colors on your palette. Even when it comes to the sky, the limited palette that is listed there, you can mix incredibly beautiful colors for the sky. And hopefully we'll see a little bit of that. Okay, so I put on this gray purpley tone that was mixed mostly with just Venetian red, cobalt, and a little bit of ochre.
So you're not just using pure black, you're really getting some chroma in your darks.
Oh yeah, I'm not against using black, but if I used black, it would be blended, not pure black. And so I have two tones of that dark that I mixed up, a more purple and a more blue. So I'm going to put that back here in the distant shore, and I'm going to actually straighten out the shoreline since it's a little crooked here.
Is it possible to get just a little bit closer to your paper, Mary?
Sure.
The camera. Oh, great. Thank you.
Is that good?
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Oh,
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So now we've got. Okay. So that's the distant shore. And you can see how close in value I'm putting in on top of that blue, a little bit of the purple that I used to design the trees. But you can still see that it is bluer, so it recedes. And I'm going to work a little bit more blue into that so that it stands out a little bit.
So there's a question in the chat saying, would the dark tones lean warmer darks or cooler darks compared to the sunset colors?
Well, these are definitely cooler than the sunset because that sunset's going to heat up a lot. And so now I'm going to deal with putting some, well, first I'm going to define this shoreline here just a little bit. And then we will deal with coming in on top of those trees with some darker greens. Okay, so I think we've got a nice tree shape going on here. I'm pretty pleased with the shapes of the trees, but we can see what's going to be very important here are our sky holes, because that's where our emphasis is going to be. And
can you give us a little bit of more information? You said the shapes of the trees are looking good. Can you give us a couple ideas of what makes a good tree shape and a couple ideas of what makes a bad tree shape to help us understand better?
Okay, what I'm going to do here is, we're all such visual artists that I am just going to, let's say we have a palm tree. And there are a lot of palm trees in Florida that look like lollipops.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a bad tree shape.
For some reason, we're getting balloons on the screen, which is kind of fun.
Balloons?
Yeah, I don't know if there's like some sort of trigger happening on my side or maybe your side, but whenever you say a certain word, oh, here they come again. I have no idea.
Oh, that's funny. So this would be a more interesting tree shape. And so again, this has no active or passive side. It's just kind of a blob. So this has more of a center of interest here.
Oh, that's
And
wonderful.
so
And
I would call this, yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's just an example. And see, that's just on the paper that I printed out, the thing about the Pentel pen. So, you know, you can paint on a lot of things. You know, back the Impressionists, they used to paint on cardboard because, you know, they were strapped for cash, and, you know, you couldn't go to, you know, all these art stores that we have today and, you know, buy your canvases and everything already pre-made. So, okay.
Sure.
So what I'm going to
have an advantage as a contemporary artist to have access to materials at a pretty affordable price point compared to
absolutely. So, okay. So these trees are always the dark, well, not always, but almost always the darkest dark in the landscape, because, you know, your light source, which is your sky, is the lightest plane. And then when it hits on the ground, which, you know, this is water, we don't have a ground plane, but the ground plane is your second lightest light. And then if you have a slanted plane, mountains or rocks or whatever, that would be your third lightest. And your darkest are your upright trees because they get the least amount of light on them. So that's going to be my darkest dark. And now I'm going to come in and interface with these tree shapes with the sky tone. And the sky tone is not going to be as dark, of course, as the trees. So here I've got a lighter shape coming in, and then you can see the tree a little bit better.
Oh, I like that choice to really help the tree stand out.
Yeah, and you know, you can see that this color that I've chosen is a little bit lighter than what's in the photograph, but that's because the photograph made these clouds darker. You got to know what your photographs do. So at least on my iPhone, which is what this was taken from, the sky was not this red and orange. It was actually more yellow with some orange in it and some red. But, you know, you've got to, like, when I take photos, I make sure that I stop and kind of look and see what the photo has done. And so I get a better idea for, okay, this is what I'm seeing, but this is what the photograph is looking like. And then there's a little thing now, which is wonderful. There's that little information button where your photographs are. And I use that sometimes to take notes. And I'll say redder, yellower, lighter, purple, you know, more purple or whatever. So that's a good way to take notes. So I'm really liking the value of this against my tree plane and against the orange sky here, because you know, we've got a lot of warm tones. So this will be my cooler tone. And, you know, yellow and purples are complements. And so we'll get some of that going also. Okay, so I'm going to design this, trying to take great care about using that also to make my tree shapes stand out.
When you are bringing two colors together, do you typically use a sharp edge or a softer edge, or what do you like? How do you treat your edges when you're bringing two colors together?
Well, it just depends. You know, I've really struggled to have a variety of shapes, but today on this demo, I'm not really, what I'm mostly concerned, you know, there are 6 elements to design. You know, there's line, and then there's shape, which is really what we're working on today in this study. And then there's color, and obviously we have color, but that's not mostly what I'm focusing on today for teaching purposes. I'm trying to mostly concentrate on shape and the lines that go into these shapes. So but color is one of the elements, and obviously we're working on color, and value. So, you know, if you have a shape, then you also have a color and a value that's just inherent in the shape.
Sure.
So
I once
here,
heard her say that, you know, your job as a painter is to put the right note in the right place at the right time. Like,
absolutely. And, you know, this is a study. So, you know, I might not be doing that. And I might come back later and go, oh, gosh, you know, I should have made this, you know, more yellow or more orange, or that shape is uninteresting. I will come back in and rework this, you know, maybe 10 minutes later, or maybe, you know, a few days later, because I'll look at it and I'll go, oh, I can make that shape more interesting. I can make the way the tree interfaces with, you know, the sky more interesting. So see, I just connected these two shapes here. And that was an intentional decision here. And so the question is, am I going to leave these little, you know, let's call it sky holes in the cloud? I think for now I will.
great.
And
So just a few questions in the chat really quick. So
yeah.
for those of you just joining us, she's working on just basic printer paper that she printed a photo onto that she had taken, that she had written notes on her iPhone about some adjustments, such as the clouds being a little bit lighter. But it's just regular printer paper that she's painting with oils on top of. And then Mary, there's also a question talking about the tree lines. Would you put any of the sunset color around the tree line at all? That I guess that's maybe a convention that some painters use.
You know, that's there are 10 million different ways to do things. And that certainly is one of them. You know, another way is to make it more tonal and, you know, have things softer. And so it just depends what you're looking for. And there's no right answer. So you can see down here on this orange tone right here, I'm graying that color down. Okay. And that is on purpose. And as I come closer to where the sun is setting over here, I will let it heat up. But for right now, I'm graying this off a little bit so that when I get into the most intense color, it's not all the same. It's going to kind of gray off as you get away from the light source. And it will cool off a little bit too. So I'm actually, instead of so orange, I'm going to make this a little bit redder. So it will have right here, that has less yellow. But this obviously still has a lot of color in it. And so, like I said, today I'm not so much dealing with edges. When I'm doing a little quick studies like this, I don't worry too much about my edge work. I do that later on a more, you know, when I'm working on paintings. Of course, I do address edges a little bit, but that's not what I'm focusing on. Okay, so now we're getting into a little bit more intense and yellow.
Okay, so I have a question for you as you start to approach your trees and bringing that color closer to your tree holes. When I'm teaching my students online, I find that they have a tendency to like make the tree holes all the same, like make it a repetitive pattern.
Right. And
Advice?
that's just boring. Like on my trees here, I had to change the shapes because they were all the same and they were repetitive. We don't want repetition in art. You know, we don't want too much chaos, but we don't want too much repetition. And so the other thing with sky holes, now this is kind of about the sunset. So, but in a normal painting, when you're doing sky holes, you want you want it to be a little bit darker than the sky, because otherwise it like stands out. Now, all you're going to be able to look at is that big hole that's there. So another thing is to, now I said I wasn't going to talk about edges, but you got to talk about edges when you talk about sky holes. So you really need to soften the edge around your sky holes. And normally I wouldn't really do that on a study, but since I'm live right now, I don't want these to stand out like it's some kind of, you know, target. And so I can come back in now with my tree color. Oh, wrong color. And also soften that sky hole, so it doesn't stand out quite so much. The other thing with a big mass of trees, you want to make sure that you have some sky holes. And early on when I was painting, I don't remember who said this, but I thought it spoke to me. You don't want to have a big solid mass of trees because the birds have to be able to fly through there. So,
that's a great visual.
Yes, it was a great visual for me. Okay, so now I'm going to put our setting sun in there.
Well, I love how much that you're actually changing your photograph, and that these changes from what the photograph is to what you're painting on top of is so instructional for us watching you do this. Because, you know, if I just saw you lay down those colors onto a blank canvas, you know, I'd be like, oh yeah, she sees orange and she sees red. But the fact that you actually diminish them a little bit and are designing from the photograph, it's a very different way of thinking that I'm really enjoying.
Well, and you know, like I said at the beginning, you know, we're the artists, so we've got to, you know, design this the way we want it. Now, I am going to put a little bit warmer. That's a little bit, well, I didn't mix my color too well there, did I? Okay, so there's the red coming out, but it's still pretty much the same value. So I am going to heat this up a little bit around where the sun is setting, because that sun will influence, even though these are silhouetted trees, so they're dark. So, and now as we come further away from that light source, I'll probably add a little green in there because we're getting further away. And so what makes that interesting, you know, red and green are complements. Yeah. So now we've just got this vibration going on up there. And leave more of the red down near where the sun is setting.
It's really beautiful to see, even though we're all in that dark value range, how much color you're really extracting from that clump of trees.
Well, you know, when you're doing a sunset, you know, this is a low light situation. And so you gotta keep your values close together and hope they read. Okay,
Right.
so
Speaking of your values, there's a great question in the chat from Susan asking you, how do you keep from smudging up that beautiful color when you have something light next to something so dark, you know, because your trees are wet and now your sunset color is wet. How do you keep those notes clean?
be very careful. Seriously, it doesn't really matter because this is just a study. And, you know, if I become painful in my application of the paint and everything, number one, it takes the joy out and it just isn't fun anymore. And so, but I am using smaller brushes and I am taking care of where I am putting the paint. And I am trying to paint intentionally. And so that is something that we all need to do, is to be intentional in what we are trying to accomplish. And I am trying to, this is what I'm really working on right here. These trees, these tree shapes, and how the sky, that setting sun, interfaces with them. And, you know, how the color leaps out from here in the sky. So, you know, I've kind of got, at this point, I'm happy enough with the trees. I'm going to start setting a little bit of color down on top of this. And, you know, it is subtle because it's a setting sun and, you know, low light situation. If you do come to Pace, I am going to cover more trees again, but, you know, trees that are side lit, trees that are, you know, face lit. And so we'll talk about designing all of those trees. But for right now, this is, you know, a low light situation. And so our values have to be very close together. Okay.
So a few questions in the chat. We're painting in oils today, just a reminder. And then, Mary, are you using any media with your oil paint, or is it just pure paint going down?
I have 𝗂𝗵𝗶𝗴𝗶 that I have squirted out, but I don't think I've actually dipped into it yet, to be honest with you. Okay, so see, I just grayed that off. I'm playing with grays. And to see, you know, because if you don't have gray, then, you know, all the color is not going to stand out. You've got to have the yin and the yang. So if I'm going to put that gray down there, and, you know, I might come back and paint on top of this and, you know, change it all. So now I'm putting carrying a little bit of that gray through the bottom there to kind of just quiet this down a little bit, you know? And, you know, it's your aesthetic taste. So some people out there are probably saying right now, oh, I liked it better before with all the color. And that's your aesthetic taste. And, you know, maybe I will too. But I don't know if I don't experiment. And, you know, by doing this, you find out, you get those aha moments. Like, I think that's way too gray and I don't like it. So now I'm going to come back with a little bit more color. And see, I like that better. But what's nice is it's setting down now on that gray. So look at how I love the interface of those two.
It's beautiful. It's such a delight to hear you applying what you said to us at the beginning of, you know, study, right? And that's what you're doing. You're not getting all caught up on this rule or that rule. You're putting down a few things, seeing if you like it and adjusting it.
Right. And, you know, if this was my canvas and I had this painting going and I was like, oh, I'm really liking it, not a chance I'm going to experiment. You know, and that's the problem with quote unquote making a painting, is that, you know, we get afraid to do what needs to be done to the painting. And okay, look at here. We're going to stick in some, and this is just lemon and cobalt. Look at how beautiful that green is. And I think it's because we've got it surrounded by some grays. So, okay, so see, I'm not going to worry about this edge. It's going to look cookie cutter, but that's okay, because we're not doing edges today. We are doing line and shape. So is this green a little too garish? Could be, but I'm going to leave it for now, and I'm going to introduce a little bit bluer color, which it's funny because this is looking, at least, you know, I'm right up on this canvas, well, this piece of paper, but it's looking kind of a little garish to me, but I'm going to leave it.
It looks beautiful here. You're so brave the way you're putting down some of these color notes. And I see what you're saying about needing to be in experimental mode in order to try things that you might really love.
Right. And you won't find this stuff out if you don't play. And so, play more, make paintings less. Okay, so I like that green color there. And, maybe later we'll modulate it a little bit. Maybe we won't. So let me get in here now with some of these warmer tones in the sky.
Just a heads up, we have about 5 minutes left to work, just so you know.
Oh, you're kidding.
I mean, I could give you
goodness.
closer to 10 and I'll talk faster.
Oh, no, that's okay. Okay,
Okay.
so I'm going to quit kind of knick-knacking this painting here. And okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this blue tone in here. We're going to go a little faster here, just to kind of get these color notes in so you can kind of get a feel for what I was after. And, with these skies, I like to get the feel of the wind in the clouds.
Mm.
And so we've got this nice, big, cool note here. Okay, now, boy, I don't know, where did the time go? My goodness.
Well, you were just filling our minds with all this wonderful information. It just went like that.
I'm telling you, it certainly did for me. Okay, so we're right above the light source here. So we're going to get a little garish here. Oh, yummy, yummy. And now you've got, again, here I am, I'm paying attention to the edge, but I'm not supposed to pay. This is just a little study, but just to soften that. And you've got the yellow against the purple. So, you've got that warm, cool vibration and you've got the complements. I like that right there, that little happy accident. Okay, now we're going to come in with some more orangey tones in here. And so see this little cool note here? That's just the paper underneath, but I like that and I'm going to keep that. It's a nice grade note that will make the warmer tones stand out. So now I'm going to come to this upper corner here. Oh, that's not what I wanted.
And just a reminder that Mary Garrish is our guest today, and she will be teaching at the Plein Air Convention and Expo upcoming. I'll give some more information about that at the end of our lesson today. But make sure that you don't miss out on Pace, because Mary is amazing and we want more of her.
Well, thank you. And we will be continuing this lesson that we've started here today at the convention. So I hope to see some of you there.
Well, and I love this idea that you're going to be doing tree shapes, but trees from different lighting angles. What a unique, specific study that is so useful for plein air painters.
Well, I'll never forget one of the first plein air workshops I took. I was certainly very green, to say the least. And, the instructor, who happened to be Scott Christensen, who is the keynote speaker at PACE this year. So he demos he demos a tree, and I go, oh, okay, now I can paint trees. Well, that certainly was not the case. And so, trees for me, it's been, so much fun studying them. And the other thing, Pinterest is a great source for, looking at different artists that paint trees well and analyzing why is that working for them. Okay, so now I'm going to come back in. You let me know when we're busted for time here, but this is
a couple minutes.
Okay, so this is a really, I'm not standing back because I'm sitting here painting live, but I can tell that this is a little dark for a cloud. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to lighten it up, but leave some of the darks at the base because usually the base of the clouds are darker, and because they're heavier down there. And that's going to make our trees pop even a little more. So now, with that being wet, I'm going to dip back into some of my orange tone and heat this up a little bit, because this darker cloud will be getting influenced. And I'm liking that warm, cool vibration.
It's beautiful. I remember the first time one of my teachers told me to put more orange in my purple, and I'm like, what are you talking about? That's insane.
Right, right. Oh my gosh. And so, see, there you go.
Oh.
So, you know, we could still, there's a lot to work on. You know, I certainly, I will put this reference, my little study here, I will put that in my book of ideas, because I think I might do a larger painting of this. But in saying that, I will probably do more of these. And so before we pop off camera, I will show you one more that I did, just playing around and getting ready for today. So this was one that I did, and you know, it's similar but different.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so, you know, this is how you learn, because I mean, how long did this take? You know, maybe 30 minutes, and you can do a lot of these and you learn so much. And
definitely learned so much from you today, Mary. Thank you so much for being here with us. You were an incredible guest. I learned so much, and I'm sure that just based on the chat that everybody's going to like be pulling out their pictures and practicing. How did you describe it? Practicing, studying. They're going to do more
Yes.
studying because of your influence. So thank you for sharing.
And studying is fun. Once you get in the habit, it's so much fun, because there are no mistakes.
That's so wonderful. And what a great note to end our session on today. I hope everybody enjoyed today's demo. Don't forget to visit Mary's website at marygarrish.fineart.com. And of course, follow her on Instagram at marygarrish.fineart. I should also mention that Mary has 2 videos available. One is 6 elements of design, and the other one is tonalism. And you can find them at painttube.tv, and you won't want to miss it. They're absolutely wonderful videos. You can find more of me on my YouTube channel at 𝗗𝗿𝗶𝗴_Arts. I also have a second older YouTube channel called The Da Vinci Initiative. I hope you'll check it out. You can learn more about my online school at 𝗗𝗿𝗶𝗴𝗎𝗋�arts.com, and follow me on social media at Mandy Fine Artist. Now is the really fun part where I get to give you things. So I have a gift for you. Download the free video, 97 Incredible Art Secrets. Go to 97artsecrets.com/ASL. And don't forget to sign up for Acrylic Live. I saw a few people in the chat already ready to go. There's only a couple of weeks left. So it's March 26th through 28th with Essential Techniques Day on March 25th. 4 days of premium instruction in acrylic painting, and you can sign up at acryliclive.com/ASL. And of course, if you haven't signed up for the Plein Air Convention and Expo, you won't want to miss Mary there. Mary and many other great instructors are attending this year, and PACE is May 19th through 25th, and you don't want to miss it. You can sign up at pleinairconvention.com/ASL, and make sure to like and subscribe to this channel at Art School Live on YouTube and at Eric Rhodes on Instagram. Thank you all so very much for joining us today. I hope to see you tomorrow with artist Kathleen Dennis. She'll teach us how to create interesting layers with acrylics.